Success doesn't belong to the smartest person in the room. It belongs to the one who decides to move before anyone else even wakes up to their potential. Most people wait for permission, wait for confidence, wait for the right moment. But the ones who rise early, the real achievers, they create the moment. They take action when others hesitate. They build discipline when others make excuses, and they claim opportunities long before the world even notices they exist. If you're ready to stop following the crowd and start outrunning it, this is your wake-up call. This is where your acceleration begins. Most people never realize how much of their destiny is being shaped in the smallest moments, those moments where their attention drifts, where their mind wanders, where they let the world pull them in 100 directions instead of anchoring themselves to the one direction that matters. If you truly want to reach success before everyone else does, it begins with mastering relentless focus, not casual focus, not I'll try, not when I have time. I mean the kind of focus that becomes a way of living, a lens you see the world through, a force that pulls you forward even when everything around you tries to pull you away. Because here's the truth. Life is loud. Life is full of notifications, opinions, noise, temptations, and distractions disguised as opportunities. And while everyone else is chasing everything, you learn to chase one thing. You decide what your outcome is, and then you train your mind like a muscle to return to that outcome over and over again. It's not about having more time than others. It's about using the same time with 10 times the clarity. Imagine a beam of light. When it's spread out, it's weak. But when it's focused, it becomes powerful enough to cut through steel. That's what happens to a human being when they stop letting their energy scatter. You become dangerous, not in a harmful way, but in a way that makes obstacles step aside because you're moving with intention and certainty. And focusing is not just about saying yes to what matters. It's about saying no to what doesn't. Saying no is an art. It means refusing to carry other people's priorities when you haven't even finished your own. It means being willing to disappoint others for a moment to avoid disappointing yourself for a lifetime. And it means recognizing that every time you choose distraction, you delay your destiny. Relentless focus requires courage. Courage to be misunderstood. Courage to be different. Courage to disconnect from the drama that entertains most people but drains the ones who are here to lead. Success comes early to those who filter aggressively. Filter people, filter tasks, filter thoughts. You become the guardian of your attention, not its victim. Now, this kind of focus isn't born from motivation. Motivation is a spark. Focus is a discipline. It's something you practice daily. You catch yourself drifting, and instead of judging yourself, you gently return your mind to the path. Just like strengthening any muscle, repetition builds power. You show your brain that you are in charge, not your impulses, because your impulses want comfort, but your future wants commitment. This is where most people fall behind without even realizing it. They choose small distractions over big visions. They let minutes slip away, then hours, then days, then years. And eventually they wonder why someone else made it before them. But it's never luck. It's never magic. It's mastery of the mundane. It's choosing again and again to direct your energy into something meaningful instead of something momentary. Once you train yourself to focus with depth, something extraordinary happens. Time expands for you. You get more done in a single concentrated hour than most people do in an entire unfocused week. You start entering states of flow where ideas come faster, solutions appear clearer, and progress becomes natural instead of forced. You stop feeling overwhelmed because you're no longer juggling everything. You were executing one thing with excellence, then moving with purpose to the next. And when you live this way long enough, you begin to separate from the crowd, not because you're better, but because you're more aligned, more present, more intentional. Everyone else is still chasing momentum while you're generating it. Everyone else is trying to feel ready while you're already moving. Everyone else is reacting while you're creating. Focus becomes your superpower, your advantage, your acceleration. It's the thing that allows you to rise earlier, think clearer, act faster, and grow sooner than the average person ever will. It makes your work feel meaningful because you're not scattered across 1,000 directions. You're walking straight toward the life you're building. And here's the final piece. When you commit to relentless focus, the world eventually adjusts to your standard. People begin to respect your boundaries. Opportunities begin to match your vision. Your life starts to reflect your intention. You become the kind of person who doesn't just reach success. You reach it early because you refuse to let your attention be cheap. That's the power of mastering your focus. That's the foundation of everything that comes next. And it all begins the moment you decide to take your attention back. Most people wait their entire lives for the perfect moment, the perfect confidence, the perfect plan, the perfect conditions. They convince themselves they need more preparation, more assurance, more clarity before they make a move. But the people who reach success before everyone else, they don't wait. They move before they feel ready. They understand that readiness is not a starting point. It's something you grow into through action. And this single shift separates the ones who make progress from the ones who stay stuck in the cycle of someday. Think about how many times you've held yourself back because you were afraid of making the wrong decision, afraid of failing, afraid of looking foolish. But what if the very thing you're afraid of is the doorway to everything you want? The truth is, every breakthrough you've ever admired started with someone stepping forward while their voice was shaking, while their hands were trembling, while their mind whispered, "You're not ready." But they stepped anyway. They didn't wait for confidence. They created confidence by moving. Action creates clarity. Action creates momentum. Action creates courage. When you wait for the perfect moment, the moment passes. But when you move the moment you feel resistance, that resistance becomes your fuel. The people who rise fast understand that most of life's opportunities don't come wrapped in certainty. They come disguised as challenges, risks, and leaps of faith. And if you're always waiting for perfect visibility before you take a step, you will spend your life standing still while others discover the path by walking it. There is a threshold inside every one of us, a line between what we know and what we fear, between where we are and where we want to go. Most people camp out on the safe side of that line, convincing themselves they'll cross it one day. But the moment you step over that line, everything changes. You tap into a version of yourself, you've only glimpsed in your imagination. You start to feel alive again, engaged again, hungry again. Movement wakes up the fire inside you. And here's what's powerful when you move early, even if your steps are awkward, even if they're messy, you learn faster than the person waiting for a perfect strategy, because real learning comes through motion, through trial, through adjusting. You gain experience they don't have. You gain resilience they haven't built. You develop instincts they've never tested. The world rewards the person who learns fast, adapts fast, and steps in while everyone else is still thinking about it. Most people underestimate the cost of waiting. They think waiting protects them, but in reality, it drains their potential. Every day you hesitate is a day you lose momentum. Every opportunity has a window, and when you hesitate long enough, the window closes. Not because you weren't capable, but because you hesitated your greatness away. The people who reach success sooner aren't necessarily smarter or more talented. They've just mastered the courage to start when everyone else is stuck analyzing the start. And starting early doesn't mean starting recklessly. It means starting with intention, even when the path isn't fully visible. It's trusting that you'll figure things out along the way. Think about it. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you weren't sure what to do, but once you started, once you took that first small step, you suddenly saw possibilities you couldn't see before? That's how life works. The next step doesn't show up until you take the first one. And yes, you will make mistakes. Yes, you will stumble. Yes, you will have moments where you doubt yourself. But the difference between those who rise and those who remain is simple. The ones who rise use mistakes as stepping stones, not stopping points. The ones who rise are willing to feel uncomfortable temporarily to grow permanently. They don't need perfection. They need progress. They don't need certainty. They need movement. There's a kind of magic that happens when you commit to moving early. Doors open that weren't visible before. People appear who want to help. Unexpected opportunities begin to align because life responds to motion. Life rewards initiative. Life favors the bold, not the hesitant. When you move, you send a message to the world and to yourself that you're serious about what you want. And the more you practice moving before you feel ready, the more natural it becomes. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions because you realize you have the power to create them. You stop fearing failure because you understand it's part of the process. You stop wondering whether you're capable because your actions prove that you are. And something even deeper happens. You build the identity of someone who acts, someone who leads, someone who creates outcomes instead of waiting for outcomes to arrive. Once you embody this identity, catching success early becomes inevitable, because while everyone else is preparing, planning, and procrastinating, you're already in motion. That's how you gain the advantage. That's how you create acceleration. That's how you get ahead. Not by knowing everything, but by being willing to begin while others are still debating the beginning. Move now and let readiness catch up to you. Most people think success comes from feeling motivated every day. They think they need constant inspiration, constant energy, constant fire inside them to take action. But anyone who rises early, anyone who reaches success before the crowd knows something far more powerful. Habits will take you where motivation can't. Motivation fades. Habits stay. Motivation is emotional. Habits are automatic. And the moment you understand that, your entire life begins to change. Think about how unpredictable motivation really is. One day you wake up ready to conquer the world. The next day you wake up tired, stressed, unfocused. If you rely on motivation, your progress becomes inconsistent, unstable, and slow. But when you build habits that align with your goals, your progress becomes predictable. It becomes structured. It becomes undeniable. You're no longer hoping you'll follow through. You've designed your life in a way where following through is the default. The people who get ahead early don't have more discipline. They have better systems. They don't waste time negotiating with themselves every morning. They don't wake up wondering if they're in the mood to do what they need to do. They've eliminated the debate. They pre-decided who they are and how they operate. And once something becomes part of your identity, it becomes easier than it's ever been. But habits don't build themselves. They're crafted. They're engineered. They're formed through repetition, patience, and commitment. Even on the days when you don't feel like it, especially on those days, because those are the days that separate the dreamers from the doers. Those are the days that build the muscle of consistency. It's easy to show up when the energy is high. It's transformational to show up when the energy is low, but the standard is high. And here's the truth about habits. They don't just shape your actions. They shape your belief in yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your self-respect grows. You start trusting your own word. You stop sabotaging yourself. You stop letting excuses have power over your future, and that trust becomes your foundation. The foundation most people never build because they rely on how they feel in the moment instead of who they want to become in the future. When you commit to habits instead of motivation, something remarkable happens. You begin to separate from the average person without even trying. While others wake up and see how they feel, you wake up and act. While others drift in and out of progress, you build momentum. While others take 2 steps forward and 5 steps back, you build a steady, unstoppable rhythm. You rise in the morning with direction. You move through the day with intention. You go to bed knowing you didn't leave your life to chance. And the best part, habits compound. A small action repeated daily becomes a massive transformation over time. A simple routine, reading 10 pages, exercising for 20 minutes, writing down your goals, reviewing your vision, may not feel life-changing in the moment, but stack those moments for a month, a year, 5 years, and you'll look back and realize those small acts created a completely different destiny. Most people underestimate the power of consistency because they're addicted to fast results. They want the finish line without running the race. They want transformation without repetition. But success doesn't come to the person who does big things occasionally. It comes to the person who does the right things consistently, even when those things feel small, because small wins accumulate. Small wins create identity. Small wins shape your future in ways you can't see on day one. And let's be honest, life will test your habits. Distractions will show up. Challenges will show up. Stress will show up. But when you have habits, you have anchors. You have something solid to hold on to when the world around you feels chaotic. Habits keep you grounded when motivation disappears. They keep your vision alive when your emotions fluctuate. They keep you aligned when everything else pulls you off track. You begin to realize that discipline isn't punishment. It's freedom. It frees you from inconsistency. It frees you from procrastination. It frees you from the mental weight of constantly restarting. And once you experience that freedom, you never want to go back to living by chance. The people who reach success before everyone else are not superhuman. They simply stop relying on inspiration and start relying on structure. They understand that the path to extraordinary results is ordinary actions repeated without negotiation. They build their habits before they need them. They prepare their mind before challenges come. They create routines that shape their future long before the world sees the results. And when you live this way, when habits drive your life instead of emotions, you become unstoppable. You become consistent in ways that most people only dream about. You become someone who doesn't just chase success, but naturally moves toward it every single day. Because when habits take over, success stops being a question and becomes a consequence. Build the habits and success will follow you. There's a moment in every person's journey where the world tests them, pushes them, stretches them, and tries to see what they're made of. Most people see those moments as roadblocks. They feel something hard show up in their path and think, this is slowing me down. This is stopping me. This means I'm not ready. But the people who reach success before everyone else, they see obstacles differently. They don't see them as walls. They see them as fuel. They take what was meant to slow them and use it to speed themselves up. And that shift right there is what gives them an advantage the average person never discovers. The truth is, obstacles are not interruptions. They are invitations. Invitations to grow, to learn, to sharpen your thinking, to strengthen your spirit. They force you to pull out parts of yourself you would never access if everything stayed easy. Calm, Fort doesn't create leaders. Challenge does. Ease doesn't build character. Pressure does. When you understand this, you stop fearing obstacles and start looking at them like hidden accelerators, because that's exactly what they are. Think about it. Every breakthrough in your life came from a moment you thought you couldn't handle. Every moment that transformed you started as something that stressed you, scared you, or stretched you. The challenge wasn't there to block you, it was there to prepare you for the next level. But most people run from these moments because they judge the pain instead of seeing the purpose. They want the reward without the resistance. But resistance is where you develop the strength to hold the reward when it comes. Obstacles sculpt you. They force you to become more creative, more adaptable, more resilient, more resourceful. And resourcefulness is one of the greatest powers a human being can ever develop. When resources disappear, the resourceful rise. When the plan breaks, the resourceful improvise. When the door closes, the resourceful build another one. That gritty, unstoppable determination is forged in the fires of your challenges, not the comfort of your conveniences. And let's be real, life will not always go according to your plan. You're going to have moments where things fall apart, where people disappoint you, where timing doesn't work in your favor, where you feel like the universe is pushing back. But what if that pressure isn't pushing you away? What if it's pushing you forward? What if that situation that feels like it's slowing you down is actually training you to move faster, stronger, and smarter than the people who never faced what you're facing? That's what happens to the early achievers. They move through obstacles with a different attitude. They're not asking, why is this happening to me? They're asking, what is this building in me? They're not focused on the pain. They're focused on the possibility the pain is trying to reveal. They don't complain about the weight. They use it to grow. They understand that adversity is not the opposite of success. It's the pathway to it. And when you adopt this mindset, something powerful happens inside you. Your confidence expands. You start to trust yourself on a deeper level. You stop fearing the unknown because you realize you've already survived what once scared you. Every obstacle becomes proof that you're capable. Every challenge becomes evidence that you're evolving. Every setback becomes a step forward because you refuse to let it stop you. There's another advantage too. When you rise through obstacles, you gain wisdom that people who avoid discomfort will never understand. You gain an inner strength that doesn't come from books or advice or inspiration. It comes from lived experience. It comes from showing up on the days when giving up felt easier. It comes from choosing growth over excuses. That kind of strength makes you unshakable. And here's what most people don't realize. Obstacles don't just build your character, they build your pace. When you overcome something hard, you don't return to your old speed. You move faster because you're lighter. You've dropped the fear. You've dropped the hesitation. You've dropped the belief that challenges are the enemy. Suddenly, you're not avoiding resistance. You're using it like rocket fuel. You start to see obstacles as opportunities that are disguised sometimes, unpleasantly wrapped, but carrying something essential for your future. And once you unlock that mindset, you don't just catch up to success. You catch it early, you move differently, you think differently, you respond differently. You become the kind of person who doesn't just navigate challenges, but rises because of them. So when the next obstacle shows up, and it will, don't shrink, don't back up. Don't interpret it as a sign that you should stop. Interpret it as a sign that you're getting closer. You're being strengthened, not slowed. You're being shaped, not shattered. And you're being prepared for something bigger than the comfort you're leaving behind. Because when you learn to convert obstacles into accelerators, life stops blocking your path and starts building your path. Turn your obstacles into fuel and they will drive you further than fear ever could. One of the most powerful advantages you can give yourself on the path to success is realizing you don't have to figure everything out alone. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to stumble through the dark, making every mistake on your own. People who reach success before everyone else understand this deeply. They learn by standing on the shoulders of giants. They look for models, mentors, examples, frameworks. They search for the individuals who have already walked the path and left clues behind, and then they use those clues to accelerate their own journey. Because here's the truth, life becomes a lot easier when you stop treating it like an original puzzle and start treating it like a pattern you can study. Every dream you're chasing, someone has achieved something similar before. Every challenge you're facing, someone has already conquered it. Every skill you want to master, someone has spent decades refining it. And instead of taking years to learn what they learned, you can compress that time into months if you're willing to study, observe, and absorb. People who rise early in life don't have time for unnecessary struggle. They don't let ego get in the way. They don't cling to the idea that they have to do it all themselves. They recognize the value of learning from those who have already earned the results they want. They seek out mentors, even if that mentor comes in the form of a book, a course, a biography, a video, or a conversation. They understand that one powerful insight from someone ahead of them can save them years of trial and error. And yet so many people resist this. They think learning from others makes them less original, less capable, less independent. But the opposite is true. Learning from others expands you. It frees you. It gives you a head start. It gives you perspective you couldn't possibly gain on your own. Models don't restrict you. They elevate you. They give you a foundation so you can build even higher. Think about how much time the average person wastes trying to figure things out on their own when they could simply study someone who has already mastered it. Think about how many struggles people go through that could have been avoided if they'd simply looked at how someone else solved the same problem. The people who move fast do so because they're willing to learn fast. They absorb, they implement, they adapt, they take what works and leave what doesn't. And in doing so, they collapse the timeline that others spend years stretching. But it's not just about copying someone's steps. It's about understanding their mindset, their patterns, their beliefs, their decisions. Success is rarely the result of a secret strategy. It's the result of consistent behaviors and thinking patterns that you can study and model. And once you internalize those patterns, you gain access to a level of insight most people never reach. There's a kind of humility required to learn from others, an openness, a willingness to say, I don't know everything, and that's okay. That humility is what gives you power, because when you're open, you grow. When you're closed, you stay stuck. The people who get ahead early are always learning, always absorbing, always expanding. They treat every conversation, every book, every lesson as a chance to rise. And here's the beautiful part. The more you learn from those ahead of you, the more you begin to surpass them, not because you're better, but because you're building on their foundation with your own unique strengths, experiences, and vision. You're not following in their footsteps forever. You're using their footsteps to reach terrain they never touched. You can compress decades into days just by learning intelligently. You can avoid mistakes others suffered through. You can adopt habits that took them years to develop. You can tap into wisdom that cost them time, energy, and pain without paying that same price yourself. That's not cheating, that's strategy. And eventually you begin to notice something powerful. You start developing your own insights. You start seeing opportunities others miss. You start connecting dots in ways that only become possible because you studied the masters. Learning from giants doesn't make you smaller. It makes you stand taller, think bigger, and act bolder. So many people delay their success because they insist on doing everything from scratch. The ones who rise quickly realize that leverage is the greatest accelerator in the world. And learning from those ahead of you is leverage. It's the ultimate shortcut, not around the work, but around the confusion. Because success becomes predictable when you study the patterns of people who have already walked the path. Stand on the shoulders of giants, and you'll see further than you ever imagined. There comes a point in every journey where you have to make a decision about who you're really competing with. Most people spend their lives comparing themselves to everyone around them. Friends, coworkers, strangers online, people they've never met and probably never will. They measure their PR. Progress by someone else's timeline, someone else's talent, someone else's luck. And that mindset keeps them stuck, frustrated, and constantly feeling behind. But the people who reach success before everyone else don't waste their energy comparing themselves to the world. They don't try to outrun a million competitors. They focus on outrunning one person, the version of themselves they were yesterday. That single shift changes everything. Because when you stop chasing the world and start improving yourself, really improving yourself, you become unstoppable. Think about how different your life feels when your only goal is to be a little stronger, a little wiser, a little more focused, a little more intentional than you were the day before. You no longer feel overwhelmed by the achievements of others because you're too busy growing your own. You no longer feel intimidated by someone else's speed because you're building your own pace. You no longer get discouraged when someone starts ahead of you because you know exactly where you're headed, and you're committed to moving forward no matter how long it takes. Winning in life is not about giant leaps. It's about consistent steps. It's about waking up and saying, how can I raise my standard today? How can I improve this one area? How can I expand just a little more? When you stack those small improvements day after day, week after week, year after year, you create a level of momentum that most people never experience because they're too busy looking sideways instead of forward. And here's what's powerful. When you focus on outworking your past self, your growth becomes personal. It becomes meaningful. It becomes yours. You stop feeling pressured by someone else's timeline and start respecting your own. You stop trying to take shortcuts because you understand the value of the journey. You stop doubting yourself because of every day you see evidence you're becoming better. That internal competition is the purest form of motivation. It doesn't fade when someone else achieves something big. It doesn't disappear when life gets hard. It comes from your identity, from the belief that you can always be more than you were yesterday. And when that belief becomes your standard, your progress accelerates faster than you ever imagined. The truth is, nobody else knows your story the way you do. Nobody else knows your obstacles, your battles, your sacrifices. Comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20 is not only unfair, it's destructive. But comparing your chapter 3 to your chapter 2, that's clarity, that's progress, that's real growth. And when you commit to this kind of self-competition, you begin to attract opportunities, not chase them. You begin to operate with a level of focus that others notice. You begin to build resilience that others admire, because each day your habits sharpen, your decisions become stronger, your mindset becomes clearer. You become the type of person who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. You're too focused on elevating your own life. This is how the early achievers build their advantage. While others are caught in cycles of self-doubt, envy, or comparison, they're locked into their own evolution. They don't get distracted by someone else's pace because they're too busy mastering their own rhythm. They don't fear how far others have gone because they know exactly where they're going. Every day, they're breaking their own limits, and every day those broken limits lift them higher. And what's incredible is that once you embrace this mindset, effort becomes exciting. Improvement becomes addictive. You stop wondering whether you're good enough because the question no longer matters. You're getting better every single day, and that's all that counts. You stop trying to emulate someone else's greatness and start building your own. You stop running someone else's race and start sprinting in your lane. And the more you grow, the more your life expands. Your capacity increases. Your confidence deepens. Your vision sharpens. You begin to operate in a space most people will never experience because they're too distracted trying to be someone else instead of becoming the greatest version of themselves. So make yourself the standard, make your evolution the goal. Don't focus on beating the world. Focus on beating the limitations you carried yesterday. Focus on raising your own bar. Focus on becoming the person you know you're capable of being. Because when you outgrow who you used to be, you won't just reach success. You'll rise faster than everyone who's still trying to compete with anything outside themselves. Outwork your past and your future will outrun everyone else's.